Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Jason Granzotto from the Tri Health Wellness Center. In today's podcast, I'm talking to Amanda Bacchus. Amanda is the founder and director of the Vaughan Relationship Center. Amanda has been working as a helping professional in some capacity since the age of 16. She's been registered as a social worker for the past 16 years, and in that time, she has received her designations as a marriage and family therapist and psychotherapist. Amanda works with all relationships and supports couples, families, and individuals in building stronger relationships with real solutions. She believes that the solution needs to be realistic in order to create sustainable change. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Oh, great. What motivated you to create a relationship center?
So early on in my career, when I was speaking to individuals, I noticed that their struggles seemed to stem back to some type of relationship issue. So whether they were talking to me about depression or anxiety or anger management, trauma, it all seemed to stem back to some type of relationship issue. So I wanted to create a place where, because there's a lot of centers out there that work with a variety of issues, and I want to create a unique place where we can support individuals in improving their relationships and have therapists who are specifically trained to support them. So at the Vaughan Relationship Center, we do mainly work with couples, but we also can work with individuals who are struggling with their relationship, and if their partner is not able or willing to attend therapy with them, we can help them. We can also work with families, and we can also work with individuals on a variety of different issues like depression, anxiety, anger management, trauma, and addictions.
Okay. What are some of the things, the themes or maybe misconceptions that people have regarding couples counseling or in their relationships in general?
So one of the most common misconceptions is around communication. So we'll have a lot of people come in and they'll say, you know what, we're not getting along in our relationship because we're not able to communicate. But if you look outside of their relationship, they're able to communicate just fine. So they can communicate with family, friends, coworkers, people in the community without an issue. Mm-hmm. The issue really is that, partners misunderstand each other and they're not understanding their intentions. And so this leads to disagreements. But once they're able to understand each other, then communication falls into place.
Okay. What is, perhaps can you speak about maybe something simple, like a trick or a tip for improving communication with your partner?
Just like really paying attention and understanding your partner for where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. So in, a lot of relationships, people believe that if their partner would just make some changes, like listening more, communicating more, paying more attention, there would be no issue in the relationship, right? But what they're missing is understanding their partner and why they're reacting as they do. So if I could take an example, I'll take an example of make up a couple here, Mike and Jane. And so say Jane is using a negative tone with Mike. Mike is then going to respond in kind with a defensive tone. And he's going to say, I'm doing that because of Jane. Mm-hmm. But if Mike is able to understand why Jane is using this negative tone, then he might be able to connect with her. Now, Jane does need to be responsible for her own actions and behaviors. But she might be using a negative tone because she's responding from a place of being a human being. Like maybe she's struggling with some anxiety, or maybe she's feeling under pressure, or she's overwhelmed. And so she just might be responding from a human place. So if Mike is able to understand that, then he's going to be able to connect with Jane and calm her down. And then Jane's going to feel supported. And then the two of them are going to be able to communicate better.
Okay. What do you think someone needs to do in the relationship on a personal level to help them, I guess, communicate better? Because, the example you used, someone is already starting off with a negative tone. In my conversations with people, I often say, don't talk when you're mad. Don't discuss a problem when you're angry, because that just fuels the fire. What are some things that you can suggest to the individuals, or even as a couple, what they can do to kind of stifle that before it escalates?
Right. So, typically what happens is that we respond, because when somebody's, responding with a negative tone, then might feel attacked in that moment, and then you want to react. So you have to slow down a little bit and really pay attention to your partner. But one thing too that happens is that when we're facing these kind of reactions, our body tenses up, our mind, it becomes flooded with emotions. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, and it can take anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes for your body to get back to its baseline. So I do suggest to couples, to partners, to just take a break. Tell your partner, you know what, I need to take a break. I'm going to come back and I'll find you in about 60 minutes and then we'll talk about this again. But what they do need to do is, if they're going to take the break, they need to go back and find their partner, because if they don't, their partner's going to feel like they're not important or the issue's not important to them. So they do need to go find their partner. Now, I do hear from a lot of couples, though, they'll say, when we're calm, everything's settled, why would I go back and start the argument all over again? Like, why poke the bear, right? And so I do suggest that, that they still do go back and have this conversation, because if their partner feels alone with it, that's going to be more detrimental than the argument itself.
Is there other things that are like misconceptions when it comes to relationships?
Yeah, so a lot of people believe that, it's not their job to make their partner feel better in the relationship. And if they're there and they're present and they're showing up, then it's their partner's problem if they're not feeling good, right? And that's actually not the case. So it is their job to help their partner feel safe in the relationship and to feel like they're there to support them. And so when I talk about safety, I don't mean just physical safety. I do mean creating an emotional safety. So if you're struggling, can you rely on your partner? Are they there for you? And can you depend on them? So, and that's what's really mostly important.
Sure. And when one discusses something with their partner, often it's usually, it has a potential to become an argument. Is that always a negative thing? Is that something that should be avoided? Like, how do you navigate through that?
So not all arguments are bad, and most of the time people are just feeling hurt, or they're just expressing their concerns. Sometimes it's in a loud way, sometimes they're just frustrated or annoyed with their partner. And so those things are okay. We do get concerned if there is like violence, there's pushing and shoving, intimidation, control. If any of those things are happening in the relationship, then we have some concern, and we especially don't want that happening in front of children. But for the most part, people are just expressing their concerns. So we want to pay attention that for every one negative interaction, there are 5 positive ones. And if they're having more negative to positive ones, then they might be feeling more dissatisfied in the relationship. Also, too, we want to be mindful of feelings of contempt and resentment that might be showing up. But more than the disagreement itself, we want to see that, couples are coming back together, they're able to talk, they're able to understand their partner, and they're able to be empathetic, and they're able to take responsibility for their actions.
Right. And you did mention that, almost like a 60-minute cool down period. Would you say that's the ideal time to kind of like once everything if you've escalated to frustration and anger, would you say that's the best time? I mean, I agree, it's definitely important to have some kind of resolution, or at least just to address the main issue. What would you suggest?
For some people, they can manage after 20 minutes, they've cooled down. Most people are about 60 minutes. Once they've gotten really fired up, it can take a long time for their body to get back to its baseline. So yeah, I would recommend just taking a break. While it's ideal to have a conversation in the moment, not everybody can do so. So for the partner who wants to be persistent and have that conversation in the moment, to just recognize that your partner may need a break to have that conversation. And then if you need the break, recognizing you need it, and just take it and just ask your partner, can I have a few minutes? I'll come back to you. And then when you feel cooler, then you can go back and have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. What happens in situations where one person can calm down in that 60-minute period, but the other person, even the mention of a certain topic or conversation, it always flares things up? What would you suggest in those situations?
So, that means they're probably getting into the same cycle and patterns over and over again. And so, again, it's just about recognizing what your partner needs in that moment. And it can be really challenging because you want to get your emotions out and you want to be taken care of in that moment. So it can be really challenging to be focusing on your partner. But if you're able to focus on your partner and take a step back, then you may be able to have that discussion. So saying, okay, my partner is not going to talk to me in this moment. They're going to need some time to calm down and cool down. And if you're the partner that needs to calm down and cool down, then you recognize that your other partner might want to have that discussion. Just reassuring them that the discussion is important to you as well, but you need some time to get your mind together and collect your thoughts and then be able to answer them.
Yeah, that makes sense. For yourself, I guess in your experience, what's the common thing that couples like argue about, or is a common source of disagreement?
For the most part, people are just really hurt. Something's happened in their relationship and they're feeling really, really hurt. Some common themes that we do see, and stereotypically, we see that men will feel like they're not good enough in the relationship, that they're failing their partner, and they can feel really helpless to fix this. And so it will come out in the form of frustration. And for a lot of women, they feel alone in the relationship and overwhelmed. But women tend to like to fix it in the moment. So they might say things in a negative tone and be critical to their partner and say things like "you never" or "you always." And then they just go round and round in a cycle because the male partner is going to feel not good enough and express that frustration. So stereotypically, this is what we see. The roles can reverse, or in same-sex relationships, somebody might take on those roles. But typically, that's what we see as patterns. We also see when there's changes in life cycles, we'll see people like coming in to meet with us. So if they're getting married, they might be struggling there, or after they've had a baby, we do see a lot of partners then because the rules have changed in the relationship. After children leave the home, partners might say, you know what, like I've been tolerating things for years and I've had to put up with it with the kids around. Kids have left. I'm not putting up with this anymore. And also too, if like there's been somebody who's ill in the family, or family members are going to have to move in, then we can see those changes. So I tend to see it like as in cycles. And if you think about, you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? So as you change, your relationship needs to change. And so this is when these changes started to happen. This is when couples tend to disagree. I like to think about it as like, when I take my car in and I get the tires changed every season. And when I take the tires off and I put them back on, the tire pressure light goes off and I have to get the car rebalanced. So I think every once in a while, couples need to rebalance their relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess related to that, when would you say an issue needs to maybe, I guess, escalate to a point where to seek professional counseling? I mean, where like we've been talking about communicating with your partner, but what point do you feel like maybe like someone like yourself would be, a necessary step?
So when there's like a lot of hurt happening in the relationship and they seem to be having the same argument over and over again, they're not able to get out of the cycle. They're not able to trust their partner. And so when you're in the midst of this and you're having these disagreements, it can be really challenging to navigate through it. And then you might just find yourself having the same argument over and over again. So I think that's the best time, is to have someone else kind of, help you and be an outside observer and support you in working through the dynamics. So just like most of us don't work on our cars because we don't have the expertise to do so, like having a therapist to kind of look at your relationship and help you sort through it can be very effective.
Sure. And for yourself, what kind of feedback have you gotten from your clients after you've kind of walked them through maybe several sessions and they're starting to see progress? What are some things that you kind of recognize, like, you know what, this is a reoccurring thing, and this area, I kind of find that this is a big missing piece?
So like in terms of like what we'll see is that if they're having the same cycle over and over again, then what we'll help them do is identify what the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are happening in terms of that cycle, right? And so we don't tend to look at the issue per se. While the issue is very important, especially if there's been some real deep-seated hurt or injuries in the relationship, looking at that is really important. But what we want to look at is how are they dealing with these disagreements and how are they getting themselves out of it? And so can they kind of see the steps? So it's kind of like a dance. And are they able to see how their partner behaves and acts, and then what triggers them, and helping them slow down? And when they're both doing that for each other, they're able to get out of these disagreements much quicker, and support each other.
Okay. Yeah. In a relationship to like our center here and what you provide, how would you integrate naturopathic treatments, general wellness, positive lifestyle changes? How do you integrate that into couples work?
So when we're working with couples and we find that they're not making the improvements through talk therapy, then we might make the suggestion that maybe there's something physical going on, something biological happening, and you just need a little bit of extra help to move past it. And so we may suggest that they speak to someone like yourself to get some remedies and treatments. Or if we see there's like hormonal imbalances that might be contributing to their moods and their behaviors, then, and this can be for men and for women, then we might suggest that they speak to someone like yourself. Or if there's some mental health issues, like some depression or anxiety or trauma, and they just need a little something to kind of help them move past it, then I might suggest naturopathic medicine. I've used naturopathy in my life and I found it very effective. So I like recommending it when it's suitable.
Sure. I mean, with my patients, I find a lot of issues can arise when their mood is, they have a lot of mood swings and instability of their feelings. And we've focused a lot on blood sugar regulation and making sure that not only are they having a healthy diet, but they're remembering to eat on a somewhat regular, timing throughout the day. A lot of patients will come in, whether it's their mood, they're having a hard time controlling their feelings, or even just their anxiety is being triggered. A lot of the times it's in relationship to my eating habits have been off. I've kind of been skipping meals. And that's been a very frequent trigger for their anxiety, their depression, mood swings, all that sort of thing. So even just maybe that's as a soft tip to whoever's watching, is making sure that the diet is on point, because food is medicine, but it can have such a stabilizing effect on how we think and how we communicate. Because if you're hangry, like that, the term is becoming much more popular now, you're not going to be thinking the same way as when you're calm. You're going to be more irritated, and that always comes out as frustration. So I can totally attest to that. Just we'll be wrapping up, but what's something that you can tell, like a nugget of information or a clinical experience that you can tell someone that maybe is struggling in the relationship and they feel like my partner's not listening, my partner's not willing to do counseling, I've tried everything, whatever that may be. What would you tell them to be like, okay, there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel, maybe take these steps?
Well, for one, I would suggest that they start looking at why their partner is reacting, why they're reacting. Why is it that they're struggling to listen to you? Maybe it's, it's how you're coming across, right? And so, with relationships, we can predict what our partner's going to say before they say it. Like they can just take a breath, or their body changes in some way. And so, they're probably already predicting what you're going to say. They've already tuned you out. So changing how you communicate and how you're listening would be a first step. They can also attend therapy on their own and try to navigate this. If their partner is saying, I don't want to change, or, you're the issue, you go get some help, then, you can attend therapy on your own and try to figure out how to support your partner through this.
That's great. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Amanda, I really appreciated your time today. For whoever's watching, what's the best way that they can contact you?
So our website is vaughantherapy.ca, and they can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we posting this on YouTube, and I look forward to speaking to you in the future. Okay, Amanda, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Jason.